Okay, little technical difficulties. I'm going to share my screen back to the CPR. And we're just going to pretend like nothing happened. Just to make sure, those of you at home, somebody unmute. You can hear me and you can see the PowerPoint. Yes?
Yeah.
Good. Perfect. All right. So CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Every hour in the US, approximately 48 people will have cardiac arrest outside of the hospital, and 9 out of 10 of those people will not survive. However, if CPR is performed, that victim's chance of surviving doubles or even triples if done correctly, and maybe even more than that. And that's how important it is to know this skill. And hopefully none of you will ever be in a situation where you need to do this or perform it, but it is a great skill to know, and you do not have to be CPR certified to perform this on somebody. It's called the Good Samaritan Act, which means, if you see somebody in danger, you can help them. All right. Doctor's ABC is a good way to remember the steps of CPR. I'm going to go over this. I'm also going to show you guys what it looks like as well. All right. D, danger. That means you're checking for danger. If you see somebody on the ground, maybe you think they're unconscious or not breathing, you want to look around your surroundings to see and make sure it's a safe area to perform CPR. If there's fire and you're near a burning building or something, you want to move the body out of a danger area. R, response. Response means you are checking to see if that person can respond to you. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. You want to touch the person by tapping their shoulder and also saying, "Are you okay?" verbally. S, shout for help. You literally want to shout for help and point to somebody around you and point them out and say, "You in the black shirt, call 911." Why do you think you want to call the person by the color of their shirt? Or like, "You in the maroon, call 911." Why can't you just say, "Someone call 911"?
Because we're going to get tons of calls.
Either a ton of calls, or what could be the opposite? Either mass panic, or how about everyone might just think, okay, someone else will call 911, and then no one does. Okay, so that's why you have to point out the person to call 911. A, airway. This is where you open and clear the person's airway. I'm going to show you guys on the dummy in a few minutes what that's like, what that looks like. B, breathing. You want to check for breathing. I always say, look, listen, and feel. You want to look for breathing of the chest. You want to listen for breathing on the mouth and nose, and you want to feel for breathing and check the pulse. And then C, compressions. This is when you're actually getting into CPR. It's 30 pushes or compressions. And after you finish 30, you take 2 breaths into the person's mouth. And even if you never feel comfortable or don't feel comfortable doing breaths, studies have shown that just doing compressions still helps as well. And I'm going to show you guys all what that looks like. So there are differences in CPR between an adult, a child, and an infant. So talking about an adult, primary assessment before actually going into compressions. You want to tap on their shoulder. So this goes with the R of doctors' ABCs. The R for response. You tap the shoulder and you shout, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" The reason why you do both is because what if that person is hard of hearing? So you want to have a physical response as well. Or what if that person's paralyzed or they can't feel? You want to have a verbal response. Check the pulse on the carotid artery, which is on the side of the neck. I want everyone here at home, take 2 fingers, not your thumb, because your thumb has a pulse. So 2 fingers, and try and find on the side of your neck, you should be able to feel the pulse. Try the other side too. You're all alive. Okay, that is the carotid artery right here. And then on an adult, you want to compress the chest or push down about 2 inches in depth. People are always like, "How are you going to know if it's 2 inches?" With our dummy that we have here, it actually does click. You can feel how far deep to go. In a real person, it's not going to click, but you do kind of just get it. And obviously, if you're not actually doing it in real life, you're never really going to know. Many times in real CPR, people do bruise or even break or hurt the person's rib. The rib does break, and that actually does happen, and it's more common than we know, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, would you rather die or would you rather have a broken rib while somebody saves your life, right? But it is common. Child, everything is the same. The only difference is you're not compressing as deep. So it's about 1 to 2 inches in depth. But everything else is the same. And you're still doing 30 chest compressions to 2 breaths. Same thing. Why isn't it working? All right. That definitely paused for a while. So the infant is the biggest difference. Instead of tapping the shoulder or shaking, you know, the shoulder, you want to tap or flick the bottom of the foot and shout, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" The reason why you're touching or flicking the bottom of a baby's foot is because it's the most sensitive area of an infant. That's why. All right. The other difference is you are not checking the carotid artery, you are checking the brachial artery, which is the upper inner part of the arm. Why? Because it's the strongest pulse of a baby, of an infant. And obviously the baby's a lot smaller. You're compressing the chest not as far at all, about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. And you are not using 2 hands. You are using 2 to 3 fingers directly in between the chest. Where? And they kind of say like right in the middle of the chest between the 2 nipples. So right in the middle of the chest. When you're doing it, so 2 to 3 fingers for an infant. When you're doing it for an adult or a child, take your hand, take your other hand, wrap it around so it's closed like this, and it looks like that. Arms are completely locked. And again, in a few, I'm going to show you what this looks like. This is a picture right up here on the top right part where you're pushing hard from straight above. Notice how the person's shoulders in this picture are directly above the chest. I'm going to show you what it looks like again. Now this is talking about, if you look at the bottom here, you must compress at the rate of about 100 times per minute. Now, what does that sound like? All right, here it goes. This is what it sounds like. So every click, every sound is a compression. Every sound is a compression. And it could even go even higher than, faster than that too, up to 120 beats per minute. But you want to stay between that, that time. All right. When can I stop CPR? There's 5 reasons why you can stop. 1, when there's obviously signs of life. The person opens their eyes, they start breathing, they start coughing, you feel a pulse. 2, when a higher trained personnel arrives, if the ambulance gets there, if the cops arrive. 3, believe it or not, but it is true. If you get too tired to continue, you should stop. Because if you're not doing it correctly or at the same amount of beats that you're supposed to, you can cause some damage. So if you get too tired, you should stop. 4, when the scene becomes unsafe. So earlier I talked about the fire, right? Let's say the fire now gets closer. You moved them to a safe spot, but it's no longer safe. You have to stop what you're doing and make sure that the scene is now safe again. So it's not dangerous anymore. And then lastly, when an AED becomes available, an AED looks like this. We have this around the building. I don't know if you guys saw it. If you've ever been on the track, there is one up on the track. And it has 2, this is what our dummy looks like down in that picture in the bottom. There's 2 different pads that go on the front and side of the body. And when you press this thing and you turn it actually goes, it explains what to do, which is pretty cool. And it kind of restarts the heart. It stands for Automated External Defibrillator. It's an electronic device that really just diagnoses that person and what's going on. And it just kind of like restarts and stops the arrhythmia, and it allows the heart to kind of reestablish the correct, you know, rhythm. In a way. You ever seen like Grey's Anatomy or anything when they have the 2 paddles and they're like clear? The reason why they say clear is because you don't want to be touching that body when that happens, because it is an electrical shock. All right. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show all of you, and you guys here as well, what it looks like on a dummy and what the doctor's ABCs, remember DRS, ABC, we'll kind of see what you guys remember. All right, you guys at home, can you see this? Can I just get someone to unmute and say yes?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Glad you guys are listening that are here. All right, so doctor's ABCs, you run up to the person, you look around. There's no danger. All right? R, what is R? Response. What do I do in response?
Call for help. Call someone to go.
Nope. What do I do for response? What? Check for a response. Yep. Tap the shoulders. What else?
Are you okay?
Are you okay? Are you okay? He's not answering. Next letter is S. What's S? People at home, what's S? Shout for help. Shout for help. You in the navy blue, call 911. Why am I calling her out by the color of her shirt and not
You
just
You don't know if someone's going to call or not.
Yes, you don't know if they're going to call or not, so you have to be specific. All right, moving on to A. Anyone remember what A is?
Airway.
Airway. Yep, airway. Clear the airway. So what you do here is you put your hand on the forehead, 2 fingers underneath the chin, pull the head back. You're clearing the airway. You can even look in the mouth to see if there's any obstruction, but that's how you clear the airway. You keep the airway cleared, so you're keeping it in this motion while you go on to B. What is B? Breathing, checking for breathing. Look, listen, and feel. So I'm going to come down, I'm going to look this way at the chest to see if it's rising or not. I'm going to listen, put my ear over the nose and mouth to listen for breathing here. And then I'm going to feel. I'm going to take 2 fingers while keeping my hand here onto the neck or the carotid artery, and I'm going to feel for a pulse. If at this time you don't feel anything, you don't see breathing, there's no pulse, that's when you go into C. What is C? Compressions. Hand over, right between, in the middle of the chest between the nipples. Notice how my shoulders are directly over him. I'm not back here like reaching out, right? So I'm up here, directly over. 30 compressions, about 100 per minute. And you want to count out loud. The reason why you want to count out loud is that so that you know exactly what number you're at. And if you're doing partner CPR, where someone does the compressions and someone does the breaths, then that partner will know exactly where they're at and when to take the breaths. So right here and 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 30. Before you give the 2 breaths, you want to clear the airway, and then in real life, you would take your mouth on that over that person's mouth and take 2 breaths. Obviously, I'm not doing that, so just be like, and then you would go in and you would do it again. All right? Are there any questions there? Any questions here? Okay, what you guys are going to do now is you are going to go in to Schoology, you guys as well. You're going to go into Schoology right now. I'm actually going in there as well with you guys. Because my computer shut down, I kind of had to start all over and open everything up. So just give me a moment. You're going to go into this week's folder, and you're going to see CPR assessment. You can use the information we learned in class today. Hopefully you remember all of it. If not, you can also go into the PowerPoints folder to help you out, because the same PowerPoint that I gave you that I went over today in class is also on that, in that folder as well. Are there any questions with what we are to do today? Once you complete that assignment for today, if you have any other missing assignments, you should be working on that. You should not leave Zoom. If you are all up to date with all of your assignments, including today, then you may leave unless you have any questions.